Opinionated Idiot.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody here. Welcome back to another edition of the Opinionated Idiot YouTube live show. It is May 11, 2023, and I want to welcome in everybody to the chat here. Yes, we do other true crime stories besides Idaho. Oh, boy. So we have an amazing show planned for this evening. Yes, the mic is on. The mic is on. We corrected the issue. The mic is on. It's on. We corrected the issue. We corrected the issue.
Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, bing, bing.
Did anybody see the Trump CNN town forum last night? What did everybody think of that? A little crazy. Kind of felt like a debate. It's kind of strange, but yeah. So we are here this evening to talk about an update in the Natalee Holloway case, and I'm not sure if you are all familiar with that, but we're going to get into that this evening on the show. But before we do that, let's go in and check out the chat and see who's here to chat. And we have 2, so this should be very interesting. Looking forward to your thought, Brian. Thank you. MJC is here as well. Tsunami in the house. Good to see you. Dr. Bob says, let the music begin. Thank you all. Bobby, it looks like a brand new name here in the chat. Thanks for checking in. Danielle's a channel member. She's always here. Victorine says, I'm a little late, fashionably late. It's good to see you, Victorine. Usually always the first one in the chatty chat. Robert is here as well. He says, good evening, everyone. George is here. Good to see George in the chat. Let's see. AZ got a channel mod here. He says, hanging out. Says, yo, what up, dude? How you doing? Chosen Rosen in the house, another channel mod. I want to say, everyone, please smash the like button on the way in, and thank you for being here. Yes, thank you so much for being here. Jessica in the house. Good to see you. Mind your business says present, and I'm on time for once. Good to see you. Who else we got? Brenda's in the house. Hello, Brenda. Hello, Brenda. Shanny's here. Terry's here. And it looks like I got everybody so far. All right. Well, we're going to roll on with the show here. Give you all a little bit of an update. So first, what I want to talk about is the Natalee Holloway case. If you haven't heard about this, it was a case back in 2005. And Natalee went missing. She was an 18-year-old American girl who was mysteriously disappeared. Disappearance made international news after she vanished on May 30th, 2005. Near the end of the high school and near the end of her high school graduation trip to Aruba in the Caribbean. Or Caribbean. I say Caribbean, like Pirates of the Caribbean. Holloway lived in Mountain Brook, Alabama, and graduated from Mountain Brook High School on May 24, 2005. Days before the trip, her disappearance resulted in immediate cessation across the United States, and remains still have not been found. And she was declared dead on January 12, 2012. And there's been a lot of mystery surrounding this case. The gentleman, allegedly, Joran van der Sloot, was in custody, I believe, 2 times. During this whole time, there was extortion involved, that he extorted the Holloway family for a large sum of money. I think it was around 10 grand. And then he said that he could lead her to where Natalee's body was. That never happened. And then ultimately, once he was released twice, he went on over to Peru, was in a hotel room, and went down to a casino, met a young lady there that was very young, brought her back to his hotel room. She had found information about him, I believe, on his computer surrounding the Holloway case, confronted him about it, and then he murdered her inside the hotel room. And that was Stephanie Flora, I believe. And her dad was actually a really famous IndyCar driver, I believe, was just very well known, or a retired or maybe a present IndyCar owner. But he ended up ultimately going away, I think, serving a 28-year sentence on that murder. And now he is being extradited back to the United States to face charges in the extortion. So, this case grabbed so many people, gripped so many people. They've made multiple made-for-TV movies. I believe Hallmark did a really great one on the case. Natalee's mom is one of the most just one of the most dedicated people to never giving up to find her daughter, and nor should anybody, but has been so vocal about this and has been wrapped up in so much crap. I remember the Aruban government was not very helpful in this case, as they wanted it just to go away because it would help tourists. It would falter tourists and travel there, and they were not helping at all. But there's a lot to discover in this case, and we're going to go through it. I have kind of like a timeline, because I like the timeline thing. So I like to go present and then take you all the way back. So that's what we're going to plan on doing here this evening. Just a very sad case all around, and we'll start going through this. So Natalee Holloway suspected Joran Sloot to be extradited to the U.S., Beth Holloway says. And Beth Holloway is Natalee's mom, if you're not familiar with that. So it says Joran Sloot is serving a prison sentence for killing 21-year-old Peruvian woman. Joran Sloot, the prime suspect in 2005 disappearance of Natalee Holloway. And yes, he's never been convicted of that, but he's been the suspect in her disappearance. An American who vanished while in high school on a high school graduation class trip to Aruba will be extradited to the United States from Peru, her family said Wednesday. Holloway's mother, Beth Holloway, announced the news in a statement. Quote, almost exactly 18 years later, her perpetrator, Joran Sloot, has been extradited to Birmingham to answer for his crimes, she says. Peruvian authorities agreed to extradite Sloot, who is serving a 28-year sentence for murder of the 21-year-old Peruvian Stephanie Flores in 2010. And you can see here to the left is a photo of Sloot, and to the right is a photo of Natalee Holloway, and that was her senior picture. So it says the picture quote says Sloot is the prime suspect in the 2005 disappearance of Natalee Holloway. He's serving a prison sentence in Peru for murdering a 21-year-old woman. So the Peruvian government has agreed to temporarily hand over the Dutch citizen to the American authorities for his prosecution in the United States and for the alleged commission of crimes of extortion and fraud to grievance of Elizabeth Ann Holloway. Peru Minister of Justice and Human Rights Daniel Romero said in a statement. Gustav Meza, I'm going to probably not get that last name, Caruda, Peru's ambassador to the United States, said he hopes this action will enable the process that will help to bring peace to Miss Holloway and to let her family, who are grieving in the same way that Flores' family in Peru is grieving for the loss of their daughter. Sloot is one of the main suspects in the disappearance of Holloway, who failed to appear for her flight home to Alabama on May 30th, 2005 in Aruba. The 18-year-old was last seen leaving a bar early that morning with young Dutchmen. Her body was never found in its ensuing searches for the young woman, who reaped intense media scrutiny and worldwide attention. She was declared legally dead in 2014. And you can see here some of the old headlines here that newspapers were putting up over the years. It says Sloot was arrested at one point in connection with Holloway's disappearance, but later released on the lack of evidence. This disappearance garnered worldwide attention and sparked a media frenzy. And I do want to point this out too. There was a Dutch journalist that actually set up a camera inside the car, got Vandersloot in the car, and they drove quite a long distance somewhere. But the meaning behind it was to get Vandersloot to talk about the Holloway case. And he ultimately said in that interview, in that hidden camera interview, that he knew where Natalee's body was and he helped hide her body. And unfortunately, because of Dutch law and because of the hidden camera not knowing about it, that interview was admissible in court, but it was played publicly and we all saw it. I mean, this is way like pre-YouTube, but this was playing like all over. I remember it was playing all over like Inside Edition. It was on every local news station. And it's like this guy admitted to murder, but it became admissible in court. It's really, really crazy. And yeah, DM is saying, I remember the hidden camera thing, and I am going to play that. I do have about a 7-minute clip that we are going to be able to see that, and it is translated to English so we can follow along. It's just a crazy case. But let's go back here and finish up this article, and then I have a video that I'm going to play. And then it says Ted Williams, a criminal defense attorney and Fox News contributor who covered the Holloway case on the ground in Aruba dating back in 2005, called news of Vandersloot's extradition fantastic. Now I'm wondering if U.S. law will find something here where they can look back through the evidence that was collected, and I'm hoping, and I'm not sure how this is all going to work out, but I'm hoping that they can tie him to this murder somehow and try him. I'm not sure how that's going to work. It is an international case. It's dealing with the Aruba authorities and the Aruba court system, but I don't think they're going to be able to do something like that. But if they can get him on this extortion charge, maybe, just maybe they can put him away for the rest of his life here in a U.S. jail. And, there'll be some peace, because in Peru, he's only facing a 28-year sentence. So if he makes it through his prison sentence, he's one day going to be able to walk out of jail and be a free man. If we can get him caught here in U.S. law, how this may all tie in, maybe we get some federal extortion charges, because the feds don't like to mess around with money. You fuck with the feds, they're going to come after you. You fuck with taxes, they're going to come after you. You fuck with wire fraud, they're coming after you. So maybe we can get some really long-standing charges here and keep him, here over in the U.S. so he's not allowed to go back to Peru. I'm just going to recognize this chat as it comes up. DM says, of 48 hours, just re-released the original episode. It was from a couple of months after she was gone. Wow, I didn't see that. And I'll be honest with you, I scrubbed a lot of the internet and especially YouTube, and there was not, unfortunately, a lot of video about this because it goes so far back. I mean, when was YouTube invented? Like 2007. So this is 2005. So it's all pre-YouTube. So it says, I'm elated, and I think it'll be fantastic that Joran Vandersloot will be extradited to the United States, and he will be charged with some criminal acts associated with Natalee Holloway. All the Holloway family is wanted is for Joran to face justice, and now they may be able very well to have that justice. Authorities have not announced what type of charges Vandersloot could face. Williams said he anticipates him to be handed over to federal authorities once he touches U.S. soil, but doesn't expect him to confess to anything or make any statements. He added, the legal process could be long and drawn out, depending on what charges are imposed. Flores was killed 5 years to the day, Holloway, who was from Alabama. And that is very strange, too. Literally, this young girl was killed 5 years to the day that Holloway went missing. Crazy. There's all these weird circumstances and just weird incidences in this case. Vandersloot told police he killed the woman in Peru in a fit of rage after she discovered on his laptop the connection to the disappearance of Holloway. Police forensic experts dispute the claim. In her statement, Beth Holloway noted that her daughter would be 36 years old today. It's just so crazy. It has been a very long and painful journey, but the persistence of many is going to pay off. And she said, together, we are finally getting justice for Natalee. And I completely agree. I'm so happy that, this scumbag is going to be extradited back to the U.S. And hopefully they'll get some solace in this case, because I know Beth has been very strong through this, and it's been very taxing on her. Of course, I mean, it's her daughter. It's her daughter. So let's play this here.
Also new this morning, a man in prison for murder in Peru is being temporarily extradited to the United States now. Joran van der Sloot. He was one of the last people to see Natalee Holloway alive before her disappearance in Aruba so many years ago. He is now facing extortion charges after claiming that he could lead the Holloway family to their daughter's remains. CNN's Jean Cazares is here. She's got details on this. Jean, talk to me about how the United States and Peru came to this agreement. What does this mean?
Well, there is an extradition treaty. It was signed in 2001, so there is an obligation for them to send him here. But he's in the middle of his murder sentence in Peru, but they are still doing that. But when I was in Peru covering Joran van der Sloot, they said from the onset that they were going to send him to the United States once these extortion charges had been filed and they knew about them. You know, it was 2005.
She
and
didn't.
To
She never
take
gave
us
up.
back there, Natalee Holloway, she in Charlie's one night. Your friends saw her dancing with him. She was never seen again after that. And her parents realized she wasn't on the plane coming home. They found out Joran van der Sloot was one of the last people to see her. He was questioned, he was arrested, but he was always released. In 2010, they were still searching for answers, and they put out a $250,000 reward. Joran van der Sloot heard about that, and he contacted a member of the family and said, look, I can tell you everything. I will tell you how she died, where her remains are. I just want the money. They worked with the FBI. The family worked with them. He was actually given $25,000. An associate with the family flew to Aruba, drove with him in a car, and he showed them a house in the foundation. And he said, she's in that foundation, that she got killed because she hit her head when we got in an argument. My father buried her, and there she is. The associate went back. Months later, he emailed saying, it's all a lie. It wasn't the truth at all. By that time, Joran had gone to Peru, and it's believed he was gambling away that $25,000 that he had. He met in the casino Stephanie Flores, the daughter of a very prominent businessman in Peru, and within hours, she was dead. He is now serving time for her murder.
He did commit a crime
will be
here.
Extradited.
So he did. He extorted money. If you rewind a little bit, he extorted money from the Holloway family because they put up 250 grand to get any information about Natalee. He came forward and said that I know where she is. They flew back to Aruba. They drove to that site, and he said she's buried in that. I don't think it was him. I think it was father. She just said they brought her to a house and said she's buried in that house in the foundation. When they got back to America, he emailed them and said it wasn't true, but the money had already been transferred. So he took money, and that's extortion. It's lying. It's fraud. And that's why he's going to face charges
but
here.
remember, this may be an extortion case and a wire fraud case, but the family wants answers, and this is their moment in time. They believe
it's some minute of justice, maybe, but it's still not the answers that they have been waiting for so many years.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Thank you for following this.
The man who was the last to see American Natalee Holloway alive in Aruba back in 2005 is now being extradited to the United States to face extortion charges after prosecutors say he plotted to get thousands of dollars from Holloway's mother by claiming he would tell her daughter where her daughter's remains are. CNN's Jean Cazares joins us now. This is quite a story. Van der Sloot's been in prison in Peru. He's being extradited here for what exactly?
Well, it is extortion, just as you said, and wire fraud, but it all happened and began in 2010 because the family was desperate. Where is Natalee? We want to find her. We don't believe she's alive, but we're asking if anyone can tell us where her remains are. We will give them $250,000. Joran van der Sloot heard about that. And so he contacted someone close to the family and said, look, I will tell you exactly what happened. I will lead you to the body in Aruba, but I want the $250,000 cash. A deal was struck. He agreed to $25,000.
Her body's never been found.
And so
She was declared dead
an associate with the
in
family went to Aruba, and he said that she died
2012.
because they were together. He wanted to leave. She didn't want him to leave. And so he threw her to the ground. Her head hit a rock and she died. He secreted the body, hid it. His father buried it. He took a car and said that's where the body's buried. He later sent an email saying, I lied. None of that is true. I'm not telling you the truth about Natalee. He then took that $25,000 cash that had been wired to him. He went to Peru. It's believed he gambled with that money.
That is the claim.
Stephanie Flores.
Tsunami.
And I was there
That's
in
the
Peru
claim.
for all of those legal proceedings. And within hours, Stephanie Flores was dead.
Because there was initially in the case, when it was first reported, there was, and we're going to go through the timeline here in a second. I believe they're going to talk about it. When it was first reported, there was two other gentlemen that were friends of Vandersloot, and they said that they did take her out on a boat and released her. And in and around those waters, there's a lot of sharks. And I believe that was a rumor that was said as well, too, during some of the investigation. But I just can't believe that they had this guy arrested twice in connection with this murder, and they got out of custody both times. And then ironically, he goes on to murder 5 years later on the day, almost to the day or to the day that Natalee Holloway went missing. It's just a crazy case.
Her apartment. He was charged and convicted of murder.
Yeah,
while
the boat ride,
U.S. charges for extortion and wire fraud. And when I was in Peru, Peruvian authorities said, we promise that after he serves a number of years, based on our treater and
sadly,
based on justice,
I think so too,
we will send him to the United States. And that is what is beginning right now.
And then there was, I think a couple of years ago, there was almost a break in the case where they found a woman's jawbone in the exact same location of where Natalee Holloway went missing, but then it was confirmed that it was not her jawbone. So it was some, there was some hope that they might have found some remains of Natalee to put her to rest finally, but that ended up coming up negative and not the jawbone of Holloway, unfortunately.
Now,
but it's just temporary. He'll go back to Peru after.
He's got more years to serve, so we will see if the Peruvian authorities will bow to the U.S. to allow him to serve his sentence in U.S. or if they will ask for him back. But this is much more than extortion and wire fraud. This family want answers.
Yeah.
They want to know.
They're never going to get it, though,
and
unfortunately.
Through the discovery, that is what they're aiming
So that
for.
might happen through discovery.
It's
I just wanted to put a fine point on that. This is for an extortion case. This isn't an investigation into what happened to Natalee Holloway or who may or may not have killed her.
But I believe her attorneys will get there. They will try to get there every way they can. And remember, they worked with the FBI in all of this.
Thank you so much. That explains it all. Gene Casares, appreciate it.
I'm not a big CNN fan, but they handled that segment actually really, really well. Let's see. Christine says, I remember there was an undercover that was really invested in this and got a confession. Is that true? I don't remember anything about the undercover confession. I do remember the video that he confessed on, and we're going to play that here. It's about a 7-minute segment. I think there was actually 2 hours of video shot, but they ended up trimming it down to a 7-minute section of video, and we will play that. Again, this case it was so far from my mind, and I had to read a little bit more about it to refresh like what happened. But no, all great questions. I'm not 100%. It's been years since I remember this case. And it's sad that we, as cases move on, we tend to forget. But it's great when we see something like this that can bring us back in and shed new light for those families to get justice, to their case, or maybe find the victim's body in this and lay them finally to rest. So let's do this. I have a little bit of a timeline. It's article here. We're going to go through this really quick just to get a little bit of a timeline. It says Joran Van Sloot and Natalee Holloway, a timeline of murder for mocking law enforcement photos. The misery of what happened to Alabama high school student Natalee Holloway may finally be solved almost 11 years after disappearing from Aruba, if the word of a compulsive liar and convicted killer can be believed. So this article is back from March 17th, 2016, and that's very ironic because March 17th is my birthday. But I mean, there has been some updates till then, but it will be able to timeline you up until that certain point. So we have in May of 2005, 18-year-old Natalee Holloway was was a new high school graduate from Mountain Brook, Alabama, on vacation with nearly 100 of her fellow students. But the night before she was scheduled to return home, she went missing and never heard from again. The prime suspect in her murder was Joran van der Sloot, has a repeated run-ins with the law since then, accumulating a 2012 murder conviction of a South American woman, and may finally have confessed to Natalee's death. And I believe, if I remember, in the Hallmark movie, Natalee Holloway's mom, I think, meets with van der Sloot in it, and I think that he did confess to her, if I remember the timeline correctly. So we'll find out here. Again, it's a little foggy in my mind. I had to come back and kind of refresh on it, but we'll figure it all out. So May 30th, 2005, Natalee Holloway fails to show for her flight home from Aruba to Alabama, and authorities begin to scour the island to find her. June 9, 2005, van der Sloot, then 19, and two friends, Deepak Kapoor and his brother Statish, who had spent Natalee's final night partying with her and her friends, are arrested. Van der Sloot home is searched a few days later, and the three men are eventually released due to the lack of sufficient evidence against them. Van der Sloot is the primary suspect in Holloway's disappearance, but is never charged in the crime. November 2021, 2007. While studying engineering in Arnhem, the Netherlands, this is the van der Sloot is arrested for a second time in conjunction with Holloway's case. The Kapoor, I think it's Kapoor brothers, were arrested on the same day, and all three are charged with involvement in involuntary manslaughter of Natalee Holloway, or causing serious bodily harm to Natalee Holloway, resulting in her death. New evidence had emerged in the form of internet chat logs in which Joran, we'll call him Joran stated that Holloway was dead on the same day she disappeared. Ultimately, the men were released again as a judge ruled there was insufficient evidence to indict them. So here's the confession video. In February of 2008, journalist Peter D. Verreras secretly tapes van der Sloot, now 22, confessing to being present for Holloway's death on the beach. He describes her as being heavily intoxicated and having a seizure before dying in his arms, at which point he called a friend to help him dispose of the body in the ocean. Since the video was not legally obtained, it could not be taken as evidence, and van der Sloot later recants the statement, saying he made the whole thing up. The video aired on Dutch TV, but no new investigation opens. So let's play that video. I do have it. We'll do this, and then we'll go back to the timeline. Let's see. You just find the video. So here's that video. It is translated into English. Gonna have. He said that I'll probably walk away from this with a huge compensation. And I know it's kind of hard because you have the Dutch wording and then the English translation over it. So we'll try to do our best here. It's just the way that the video was translated.
Ik had er, zonder deze arrestatie had ik er niet op gerekend.
Now, let me just ask you this, and this is a great question from Christine. She says, did anybody believe that she originally had an accident? Well, let's just say this. 5 years later, he ended up murdering a girl. Do you think that Natalee Holloway was an accident? I don't. I think he totally killed her. I think he totally killed her. But we'll go back to the video here. Again, I know it's very hard to read because of the English translations over the Dutch. Right there, he said, I was very lucky to get away with it. If they would have found that girl, I would have been screwed. So now, as the journalist has spent some time with him, and again, this was like a 3 or 4 hour video that was cut down.
Verder dan 2 mijl. Komt er nooit meer terug, hoor.
So he's saying, the journalist asking, if you took her out into the ocean on a boat, it's done. More than 2 miles and she'll never. The scary thing about it is, was he involved in any other murders over in Aruba? Was he involved in killing anybody else? I mean, it could be a possibility he was a serial killer, killing over on an international island, hiding bodies, using friends to help him cover up crimes. I'm wondering if, once he gets extradited back to the U.S., if they're looking at any cold cases over there in and around that time, and maybe they can link him to something. But I'm not going to play too much more of that video. I mean, we pretty much got the gist of what was going on. I just want to play a little bit of it. It's kind of hard to get into it with the Dutch language and then the English translation, because it's like over Dutch. It's hard to read. But anyway, so going to 2008, Vandersloot goes on Fox News, and I tried looking for this and I could not find it. Is nowhere on the internet. But in 2008, Vandersloot goes on the Fox News show on record with Gunnar Van Susteren and says that he told Natalee, he sold Natalee to a man for $10,000, claiming that on the night of her disappearance, he took her to a beach. He put her on a boat in exchange for cash and then watched her disappear. A short time after the interview is taped, however, Van Susteren is contacted again by Vandersloot, who says he fabricated the entire story. In May of 2010, Vandersloot is charged in Alabama with extorting Holloway's parents in exchange for $250,000. He said that he would give them the location of her body in accordance to sworn statements from the Holloways that he made a down payment of $15,000 through a bank in the Netherlands to get information from him. I'm sorry, they gave him. Vandersloot instructed the family lawyers to go to the housing lot where he buried the body with the help of his now deceased father. The search turned up nothing. Now in June, so this is May and now June 3rd, 2010, Vandersloot is arrested in Chile for the murder of 21-year-old college student Stephanie Flores in Lima, Peru. Her death occurred on May 30th, 5 years to the day after Holloway's disappearance and probable death. Vandersloot, a noted gambler who was in Peru for a poker tournament and hotel surveillance video, linked him to a crime scene where Flores was found beaten and with a broken neck. He initially confessed to killing Flores after an argument, but later recanted the statement. This guy. On the same day, U.S. authorities issued an official arrest warrant for trying to extort the Holloway family. So I wonder why this took 13 years to get him extradited back here to the U.S. to face charges in that extortion. It's really crazy. So in 2012, after spending 2 years in a Peruvian jail, let's do this before I play that. Let's play this clip here. This was one of the reports back in 2000 and it's 12 years ago, 2010. Here we go.
Break in the case after 5 days in police custody, denying repeatedly that he killed Stephanie Flores. The young Dutchman broke down in admitting to murdering the 21-year-old Peruvian student in his hotel room after a night of drinking and gambling. The bombshell confession came late last night. Under intense questioning, the 22-year-old Joran reportedly told investigators that he attacked Stephanie Flores. He grabbed her by the neck when she took his laptop, he said, and started reading articles about him on the internet. I did not want to do it, he tearfully admitted. The girl intruded into my private life. She had no right. I confronted her. She was frightened. We argued, and she wanted to get away. I grabbed her by her neck, and I hit her. This morning, sources tell ABC News that Joran will take investigators to the scene of the crime, the TAC Hotel in downtown Lima, to show them how he attacked Stephanie. Remember, that surveillance video shows that he brought Stephanie to the hotel in the early morning hours on Sunday, May 30th. He's seen leading her past the front desk as he takes his keys. She walks behind him, her back to the camera. Moments later, upstairs, another camera captures them walking into Joran's room. This is the last time Stephanie is seen alive. 4 hours later, Joran leaves the hotel room alone, wearing a different shirt. He walks through the lobby carrying 2 bags. Stephanie's body is discovered in that hotel room 3 days later. Throughout the investigation, authorities have been carefully documenting, videotaping every step of their probe, including a search of Joran's belongings.
La policía tiene ya su computadora.
Police now have Joran's laptop, says Stephanie's father. It contains valuable information that may lead to more of Joran's victims.
Que hay más asesinatos.
I think he killed many others, he says.
Yeah.
Stephanie's murder has sparked new interest in Joran's role in the disappearance of Natalee Holloway in Aruba. There are reports now that new search teams will soon begin scouring the island for more clues.
The question remains, will he reveal any information with regard to the disappearance of Natalee Holloway?
The hope is that in death, Stephanie will provide vital answers in Natalee's case and bring closure to the Holloway family. And that, of course, is the next step in the investigation. Authorities down there in Peru are pressuring Joran into telling them more about Natalee Holloway's disappearance. Will he also confess to any role in that? Last night, we spoke to Ricardo Flores, Stephanie's father, who told us he's been notified of Joran's confession. He says he'd like to speak to Natalee's family to reassure them, George, that this time justice is being done.
Okay, John, thanks very much.
Wow. So then we have that, and then ultimately he was convicted, and there was some breaking news here. We're going to play
You're
this.
having a bad Friday. Wait to hear this story. Right now, we're waiting the sentencing of Joran van der Sloot, who's just been sitting there and waiting for it to come down. The Dutch national who pled guilty to the murder of a 21-year-old business student in Peru and the primary suspect in the disappearance of American Natalee Holloway almost 7 years ago. Is
the thing about this guy, too, is that he jumped around a lot. I mean, he traveled a lot. Let's just say he's going to different countries, going to these casinos, playing poker tournaments. I mean, who knows who the hell he was with and who might have been, who he might have, if there was other victims. I mean, this guy definitely has been very slick in his criminal activity. So, who knows, and I'm hoping that the U.S., when he gets here, he's thoroughly investigated and maybe they link him to something else. So let's keep playing this through.
Facing the judges again today. Steve Harrigan has been following this story all along. He's live in Miami with more. Steve?
Jenna, Joran van der Sloot has been sitting in that Peru courtroom now for more than an hour as the three judges read off that timeline of charges against him. He has already confessed to the murder of 21-year-old Stephanie Flores. He could be facing a sentence of anywhere from 15 to 30 years. He avoided life imprisonment by confessing, by accepting responsibility, and issuing what he called a sincere apology. Stephanie Flores' father is looking eagerly on inside that courtroom and had to hear some very graphic details of the murder from van der Sloot's confession. Apparently, it all happened after the two left the casino about 18 months ago in Peru. In van der Sloot's hotel room, Stephanie Flores apparently saw an email on van der Sloot's computer, something negative about the Natalee Holloway case, and she smacked him on the head with an open hand. He then, according to his version, hit her back, first with his hand, then with his elbow in the nose, knocked her out, and then took off his shirt and smothered her to death. Now, in addition to this brutality, there is a degree of cunningness involved in what the judges are calling a ferocious murder. After smothering her to death, he took sheets to clean up the blood, to try and remove any traces, and then went off about a block or two down the road and bought 2 cups of coffee and came back with those cups of coffee. So right now we're trying to find out what kind of a sentence he will face. The maximum would be 30 years in a Peruvian jail.
People.
And, of course, the Holloways have also been watching this case with intense interest. Both parents of Natalee Holloway, the 18-year-old Alabama teen, say it's giving them no comfort. The father of Natalee Holloway says he hopes van der Sloot gets the maximum in jail, 30 years.
I have no one.
The mother, through her lawyer, said she hopes van der Sloot will suffer as much as possible for all the pain he has caused. Right now you have...
Yeah. Who was buying coffee after their crime, right? Or alleged crime.
A second family.
He's a serial killer, dude. I think Dr. Bob calls it 100%. Serial killer. International serial killer.
Watching on, wondering what the fate, the penalty for this brutal murder will be in Peru. Jenna, back to you.
Yeah, Steve, stand by with us. We just saw Joran van der Sloot stand up and we're trying to get the translation. We're heard from the judge, John. The judge is there for about an hour and a half, as Steve is mentioning. So we've been waiting for the ultimate sentence, whatever that might be. 15 or 30 years make it a completely different story, whatever the results is.
He doesn't look nearly as smug as he has at times, especially during the period of years when...
yeah, in a Peruvian jail, you don't want to go there, believe me.
Natalee Holloway was missing, and he was the person of interest, but could not officially be named a suspect, although that happened a couple of times.
Pretty bad.
He was smug. He was, well, he just seemed like the cat that ate the canary a lot.
At moments, as we were watching him, and we've had this monitor on in the newsroom the entire time we've been on the air, he was fanning himself. He was standing up for part of the time. Then he was allowed to sit down. You can see almost through his shirt, you can see sweat. He's been sweating profusely and obviously looking very anxious to get along with this whole process and find out exactly what his fate is.
How interesting, how ironic, perhaps, that the three judges who are handing down this sentence are all women. Joran van der Sloot accused of brutally beating and strangling a woman, and perhaps... Go ahead.
And Steve, on that, I know you're still with us. At times it's been described that he was almost flirting with the judges, that you could kind of see his personality come through the way that he was dealing with the women in front of him. Can you tell us a little bit more about his actions in the courtroom?
Certainly his behavior, his appearance in the courtroom has been a subject of a lot of controversy. He was often yawning, scratching his head, sprawled out with his legs, not standing up straight in front of the three women judges. At one point, one of the judges rebuked him, saying he needed to show more respect for the court. This, of course, extremely unusual behavior in someone who is trying to get a reduced sentence, showing that disrespect. They also have described him now, after reading the account of that brutal murder of the 21-year-old, as a peculiar personality, without going into too much detail. They said the ferocity, the brutality of this murder against a defenseless woman who was really in a position of trust inside his hotel room really makes this an extreme and unusual murder, not a simple murder at all. Jenna.
Wiping his brow now, again, sweating profusely through this entire time. Harris, you say that you've been monitoring the situation and have heard that he's been mumbling through part of this whole procedure today.
Actually, toward the beginning at first, when they were doing a lot of what they're doing now, and he was standing for almost 30 minutes. So this could be indicative of a sentence coming, and it could be more of this legal jargon that they've been telling him all morning. But at one point, he was saying, just get on with it. Just tell me. And you can hear that. Obviously, there are microphones all over the place. You see all the cameras behind the glass here. This is so physically a different young man than the one that I covered on that island in Aruba when Natalee Holloway went missing more than 6 years ago now. I mean, he was a thin, fit, young teenager at the point, now 24 years old, clearly not in the same physical shape that he was in. And the sweating is something that you just pay attention to. At first, we thought he was crying because he was sweating so heavily that it was coming down into his eyes. And now you see him nodding. We're monitoring here, hoping for some detail on what's coming forth. But at the time on the island of Aruba, he was someone who people knew all over the place by his first name. His father was in the legal industry there as a judge. And now to see this young man, so different. Back to you guys.
It is so true to look again at him and what's transpired over the last several years, John. What was important in this case, wasn't it, is that whether or not this murder was supposed to be a crime of passion. Geraldo Rivera was on digesting some of the news with us this week, and he said,
here's a good observation. I'm probably pretty sure that he must speak Spanish because I don't see him have any earbud in or an interpreter there. Maybe there's an interpreter off camera. I'm not sure, but he must understand Spanish. Yeah, Kelly Mack says, I think he's a serial killer. 100%.
Latin American countries, if it's a crime of passion, not premeditated, then you could actually get a lesser sentence if he confessed to the crime. But if they could prove that he was trying to rob Stephanie Flores of money, then that would be an issue.
Right, easy.
28 years is the sentence. 28 years. He faced, as we understand it, a maximum of 30. So these judges gave it to him just about at the maximum. 28 years in a Peruvian prison for the admitted killer of Stephanie Flores, the young Peruvian woman whom he met in a casino and then beat and strangled to death.
Steve, back with us, 28 years. What about parole? I mean, that's something that we know at our American court system. If he's sentenced for 28 years, should we expect that he's going to serve that 28 years?
No, we certainly could see, depending on his behavior, less than that 28-year sentence. But as John mentioned, it is extremely close to the maximum.
28 years is like 100 years in a Peruvian jail, believe me.
These three Peruvian women judges obviously not giving a whole lot of weight to the, quote, sincere confession that Joran van der Sloot made. Generally in Peruvian law, it's that confession, that admission of responsibility could get a considerably lighter sentence. The judges in this case talking about the ferocity, the brutality of this murder of a defenseless 21-year-old woman, not giving much weight to his defense at all, giving him very close to the maximum sentence of 28 years. And that time is likely to be spent in a very difficult part of Peru, in the mountainous region near Bolivia. And of course, keep in mind, he's still wanted in the U.S. for extortion with the Holloway case. So it could be at least a decade or more before the U.S. attorneys get their shot at this man who is now a confessed and convicted murderer.
And you know he's thinking he'd rather be spending some time in a U.S. prison than a Peruvian prison. But
we'll see. Natalee Holloway's parents, as Steve mentioned, want him extradited back to the United States. So certainly more to this story. But today, 28 years confessed and convicted murderer, as Steve Harrigan so poignantly points out to us. More as we get it.
Lock him up.
All right. So we have that there. And then we have a little bit of a video. They went back and actually saw van der Sloot's cell after he was taken into jail. We're going to play this a little bit here. Then we're going to finish up the timeline. And then I have a video of Natalee's mom talking about the case and never giving up to finish off the rest of the podcast tonight. So let's play this.
We haven't really seen much of Robin van der Sloot after that initial flurry of videos. He's been out of sight, holed up in a prison a few miles from here. Well, that's about to change. We caught up with Joran in an exclusive encounter while on a tour of that prison. It's the first time American TV cameras have been allowed inside Castro, a stark, cold prison carved into the foothills north of Lima. Built for 1,000 prisoners, it now holds almost twice that many.
Getting a look of Peruvian jail here. It's pretty rough.
Officials won't let us see most of them, the murderers, the drug traffickers, and terrorists. But we are allowed to see the most notorious of prisoners here, Joran van der Sloot, at 6'4", towering above everyone else.
So, Joran, we're with ABC News in the U.S. Joran, you have anything to say to us, Joran?
He's being escorted from one building to another.
Was your confession done willingly? Joran, can you tell us that?
No response. Sources tell us Joran has decided not to give any interviews unless he's paid for it. Inside his cell, we're allowed to see how Joran has been living for the last 8 days. His bed, a mattress on a slab of cement. His sink and toilet, little more than a hole in the floor. He's been isolated here with good reason, says American attorney Michael Griffith, who's been inside Peruvian prisons.
In these prisons, you can get drugs delivered any time of the day or night to your cell. So people come in and out. And if someone has been given money as part of a contract to get rid of Joran van der Sloot, they're going to get him.
But inside Castro, this inmate says Joran's alleged crime might be seen as a perverse badge of honor.
There's a lot of killers like him over here. See, if you commit a crime, you hear one of us. And we respect that. You did a crime, but we got to respect you for what you did. There's a lot of people like him, like 2, 3 crimes, murders. I mean, he's just one of us.
Soon, perhaps even later today, Joran's mother, Anita van der Sloot, is expected to arrive in Lima. She will then enter these gates for her first visit with her son since he was arrested. Part of the reason for that visit by Joran's mother is to find him a new lawyer. The previous 2 lawyers have resigned amid all the bad publicity, they say. Tonight on 2020, you'll get more of our visit inside Joran's cell. You'll see the books he's been reading, the food he's been eating, and everything else he's been doing to pass the time behind bars.
All right. So let's finish up here with the timeline. So again, we know that we go back to 2010. So 2012, we read through that. So November 2012, just a few months into the sentence at Maximo Altes Navarro prison, known for being especially dangerous, van der Sloot is treated for wounds resulting from an alleged stabbing. However, prison officials say he harmed himself to generate sympathy. His lawyer claims that the prison is a place where they take inmates to torture them, and unsuccessful lobbies and unsuccessfully lobbies for it to be closed permanently. In 2014, Vandersloot, now 26, marries a Peruvian woman named, Letty Figueroa from jail, and she is also pregnant with his child. Disgusting. Wow. Let's see. In March of 2016, the National Enquirer releases a video of Vandersloot telling his wife, "I've always lied to police, and I made up so many stories." The undercover reporter on hand for the conversation asked Vandersloot to clarify if he is talking about the Holloway case, and he says, "Yes, this is also where I am guilty, and I accept everything that I have done." While Vandersloot says, not saying that I killed Natalee Holloway, it is essentially a complete confession to the murder. So that's where we are as of 2016. We know that he's been in that Peruvian prison, and he's going to be extradited here back soon to the United States. So let's finish this out with a CBS video. It's about 12 minutes long, and it's called Natalee Holloway's Mother on Never Giving Up the Search for Her Daughter in Aruba. And this was 3 years ago. So we'll play this here, and then we'll end up the stream.
Ever felt afraid to go back into Aruba because my daughter is there?
First of all, really quick, just before we go on here, I want to thank everybody this evening for coming over and checking out these lives. Look at, I know it's not Idaho content, but you are really the ones that make this channel happen, along with everybody else that subscribed to this channel as well too. But these smaller nights, these off topics, it's really great to see an audience over here. I really do appreciate that. If you're first time over here on the channel, please make sure to subscribe, and please make sure to smash that like button. I do appreciate that. Christine's asking about Drunk Turkey tomorrow. No, I'm not doing anything with the Drunk Turkey as of right now. I'm going to really just solely focus on my channel at the moment, and really make the growth here happen on this channel. Like I said, I have a very rigorous work schedule coming up in about 2 weeks. I'm going to try to keep producing as much content as I can. I may back off and do some light streaming until things ease up at work. Essentially, if you missed the stream the other night, what's happening is we lost a lot of employees in my particular area of my employer, and I am a manager in that department, so I'm needing to step up. Unfortunately, I may have to go to a schedule. Ready for this one? 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. So my work hours are going to be from late morning until late night, essentially a 10 to 9 schedule. So if I do any streaming, it'll probably be as soon as I get home, 9:30. I might try to keep it down to shorter streams, but I want to keep continuing to do content on this channel. I want this channel to keep growing, and I want these audiences to keep growing and these subscribers to keep growing, because we have such an amazing platform here, and I think that we're doing amazing things. And this channel will grow. Believe me, this channel will grow. It will grow organically, and it will grow with the most best people here that come to this channel and support. I do appreciate it. I enjoy doing this. I love doing it. It's a passion of mine. It's a passion of mine to get out and talk and perform and bring light to these cases that need to be talked about. Again, we can't do Idaho all the time. It's just, you can't do it. We're going to have plenty of time for that. And speaking of Idaho, my next Idaho show will be on Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to bring up the marker for that show. I'll drop it in the chat. Please go over. You're not, and I always say this, the Idaho shows, you're not going to want to miss this one, but you're really not going to miss it. You don't want to miss this one. We have a new theory. I've been working with my true crime sleuther, Agent Chase, Laura, and the title of that show is "Did Xana Encounter the Alleged Murder Brian Kohberger in the Kitchen?" And we will get into that. We will get into that on Saturday night on that show. And also, there's been some new document dumps that have just happened that have just happened this today as well. And if you haven't seen that, I may fire up a midday stream tomorrow, probably in the afternoon around lunchtime, to go over some of those documents. You know, maybe more of just a hangout stream, but definitely Saturday night. We're going to be a little bit later on that show. It's going to start at 9:30. I'm sorry, what is my start time? 9:15 on that show. So it's not going to be my 8:30 time, but it will be 9:15 at that show. And I really would appreciate if you all can come over and support that stream. Like I said, we have a super show. I have a visual presentation that we're going to be bringing up. Maybe some other, maybe we'll have some other guests on that night. But we are talking about getting some other guests on to join the panel, because we really love what they have to bring to this case and their point of view as well too, and they add a lot to the conversation. So that'll be in the future, but like I said, Saturday night it's going to be me and Agent Chase Laura on the case, and we'll go through that. So let's keep playing through this, and then we're going to give my final thought and wrap up the old stream-a-doobie. All right.
That's the last place that I know that she has been.
It's been close to 15 years since Beth Holloway first set foot on the island of Aruba looking for her daughter, Natalee.
This is where Natalee's life ended, but this was not her life.
Thank you so much, Brenda. I appreciate
Memorial Day in 2005. And
Thank you so
my
much.
phone rang from a number that I didn't recognize. They tell me that my daughter, Natalee, is missing and that no one has seen her. Natalee was...
Keep in mind, Natalee would have been 36 years old today. She was only 18 years old when she went missing.
Beautiful girl, involved in the church, always had a smile on her face, always so happy and energetic and outgoing.
They called her Hootie.
There's Hootie.
So Hootie Hoo Holloway.
Who's our special guest today?
Let me just pull this up. Brenda says 10 or 15-minute updates should be fine until you can get back to normal hours. Don't burn yourself out. It's never in me to ever give up. It's never in me to ever give up. I will make it happen. Believe me, I will make it happen. So, I will make some content. I will produce content. I'm going to still try to do this 4 nights a week because I believe in it and I love doing it. But I appreciate that. I'm going to try not to burn myself out, but we're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen. Believe me, we'll make it happen. All right, let's keep going through here.
It's Hootie. Hootie Hoo Holloway.
Hi, friend. Just, sitting in the back, cruising over to my place.
Natalee and her class were doing a senior trip to Aruba.
She came to wake me up so I could drive her to a friend's house for a ride to the airport. I helped her get her bag out of the car and just kissed her goodbye, said, I love you, have a great time. Never could I have imagined. That would be the last time.
She got the call and she knew Natalee was in trouble.
Snap, it's instant. Something is terribly wrong. I had to get to Aruba now.
Her daughter, Natalee, has been missing for almost 24 hours. Beth tries to retrace her daughter's last steps, and she figures out that the guy she was last seen with is Joran Sloot. Joran had been spending a lot of time at the casino that was attached to Natalee's hotel.
See the pattern here? Casino, then the Peruvian casino, hanging out with girls. There's a pattern here.
At some point, they look at surveillance tape because they knew that she had been in the casino. And Beth, for the first time, was able to lay her eyes on Joran Sloot.
Once I saw him, I was like, we've got it, let's go. It's time to go to the police now. We finally get to Aruban police officials to accompany us to the Vandersloot home. Deepak Kalpoe and Joran Vandersloot are standing out in the gravel driveway.
Deepak Kalpoe was a friend of Joran's. He and his brother Satish were actually seen leaving with Joran and Natalee that night. In fact, it was their car that they all left in.
And Joran says, yeah, okay, I was with her. We fooled around a little. I dropped her back at the Holiday Inn. That's all we know.
Finally, Joran said, I'll show you where I dropped her off. He says that she got out of the car and that she stumbled and that she hit her head, and 2 security guards helped Natalee up. And he says those are the last 2 people that he left Natalee with. Early Thursday morning, police had the security tapes ready from the lobby entrance where Joran said that he dropped Natalee off. And as we watched the tape and the night turned into daylight on the screen, Natalee never appeared.
The story that Joran told them wasn't true.
So I thought, now, okay, this is it. They can go get these men and arrest them. It didn't happen.
When Beth felt like the police weren't getting anywhere,
I will stay here until I find you, Natalee.
she used the weapon that she had, which was the media.
Natalee Holloway's mother and stepfather made no sense.
Deborah Roberts has just arrived in the island's capital.
Holloway vanished.
I know in my heart that we are going to find Natalee.
Will you even let your mind entertain the possibility that you might not find her?
No, there again, that's not an option.
I also interviewed Natalee's father, Dave.
I just feel like I have to be out there looking.
Please help bring her home.
Thank you. There was a point in time where she kind of broke down.
I had no more human strength left. There was a small, beautiful little chapel that was sitting on the hillside overlooking the sea. And I walked up to the cross and just fell to my knees. And I was just crying and praying and just begging God to give her back. This is the only place on the island where I could come to feel close to Natalee.
This morning, there is a potential break in this case. The 3 young men originally questioned by police have been arrested.
Are you guilty?
Joran and his 2 friends are confronted with the fact that they lied, that they had never dropped off Natalee at the hotel.
A different story has emerged. The guys say that the Calpo brothers dropped Joran and Natalee off at the beach where they fooled around.
And then Joran said he wanted to go home, and he left her sleeping there on the beach.
Beth Holloway seems to realize that the only way she's going to keep the pressure on and maybe find her daughter is to just keep talking.
Beth, it's Diane.
Yes, hi, Diane.
Good morning.
7 hits at night, 3 hours later, up, do it again, up, do it again, up, do it again.
The Natalee Holloway story just dominated. It was a sensation. It was also one in a string of stories that were grabbing headlines about missing,
Molly Bish, I remember that.
attractive young women. Women who all happened to be white.
Chandra Levy was last seen on April 30th. 27-year-old Lacey Peterson.
1 month into this investigation, there is intense scrutiny, and Joran and his 2 buddies are all in jail. But there's a problem.
There was not enough evidence. There's no blood trail found.
And then a major blow to Beth Holloway.
Deepak K and Sitish K will be immediately released.
Released them because they weren't charged.
It is now that I ask the world to help me. 2 suspects were released yesterday who were involved in a violent crime against my daughter. Help me by not allowing these 2 to get away with this crime.
She did her press conference, and I think